Children, we are moving on to the last topic of this chapter, that is causes of unemployment and remedial measures for unemployment, for the removal of unemployment. Now, there are different causes of unemployment. Let us discuss it one by one. Point number one is slow rate of economic growth. The reason is the actual growth rate lies below the rate targeted in the 5 decades of planning. Now, you know, when the planning commission was formed, what was the main objective of planning? In the objective of planning, you have learned about the goals of 5-year plan. In that, the concept of economic growth was the most important point which was stressed. Now, even with the 5 decades of planning, India is not able to reach the economic growth to its maximum. So, that is the main problem which is existing even now. The actual growth rate lies below the targeted one. Therefore, the economic growth and the employment is positively related. So, the economic growth, the slow economic growth has thus created unemployment in our country. So, the first reason is slow economic growth, because you know employment and the growth is positively related. So, employment of the human beings which creates production in the economy. So, it can create employment opportunities. So, the economic growth and the employment is positively related. So, a slow growth of economy can affect the employment opportunities too. So, slow economic growth in the sense the growth of industries will be slow, growth of agricultural sectors will be slow. So, automatically the number of people who are required in these sectors also will be less in number. So, that is the first reason. The slow economic growth rate has created for the problem of unemployment. Point number 2, population explosion. The number of people are increasing day by day, and India, you know, stands second in the world population. So, as the number of people are increasing, the labor force is also increasing, and there are no enough employment opportunities in order to absorb the growing labor force. Therefore, population explosion is another important reason for unemployment. Next is underdeveloped agriculture. You know that there is a slow growth rate of agricultural sector. Therefore, you can find lot of unemployment problems there also. Now, why the slow growth rate of agricultural sector? In India, even now in the at most rural areas, you can find people are still following the primitive techniques of farming, and there is no technological application there, and there is a heavy pressure on the population. So, you can find a lot of disguised unemployment in the rural areas. Now, in the last video, you learned about you recollected the concept of disguised unemployment. Actually, only few numbers of people are required in a particular farm area. More than that, people are working there. That is known as a disguised unemployment. In the rural areas, this disguised unemployment is more. More than that, in the rural areas, in the at most remote areas, there are places still people cultivating using the primitive techniques of farming. So, with the primitive techniques of farming, the number of people who are employed in the agricultural sector will be less, and even the production also will be less. So, it will affect the overall agricultural sector, and therefore unemployment will be the end result. Next is defective educational system. What the point with regard to defective education system is that no importance is given to technical education. In our country, especially in a developing country like India, more importance should be given to technical education. It can create more skilled people, it can create more skilled people. So, studies have proved that more importance should be given to technical education. Next comes the growth of industries are slow. I told you this can be connected to the first point that I have explained to you. Slow economic growth rate is due to the slow growth rate of agricultural sector, slow growth rate of industrial sector. Even the industrial sector, the growth rate is slow. Therefore, the number of people who are required in those industrial sectors also will be less. That is another reason for unemployment. Why there is a slow growth rate of industries? Because you know that industries to function, there is a need of capital. If the capital is less, industries cannot function. So shortage of capital leads to slow growth rate of industries, which can create unemployment. Next is decline of cottage and small scale industries. Now you know that especially in the rural areas, people will be more familiar with the cottage and small scale industries, where people can engage in small kind of work. So this can eliminate the problem of unemployment. But nowadays, more importance is given to the modern industries because of the emergence of more efficient and modern industries. The small scale and the cottage industries are not given much importance. So the cottage industries, especially the shawl making, basket weaving, all these comes under the cottage industry. So due to the efficient and modern industries, due to the emergence of these industries, the importance of cottage and small scale industries are decreasing. So as a result, lot of people are remaining unemployed. Next is faulty planning related to technique of production, employment generating programs and insufficient infrastructure facilities. Faulty planning. Faulty planning means faulty economic planning. Now there are some defects with regard to economic planning which has resulted in unemployment. Let us see that one by one. Due to the techniques of production, you have learned that a country can adopt two types of techniques of production. One is capital intensive and the other one is labor intensive. Now what is labor intensive? Using more number of labor and producing the goods and services. And you have learned in class 11 regarding the labor intensive technique. And we do learn that India is a country where labor intensive technique can be applied because it can create more employment opportunities. Now, with the development of science and technology, the labor intensive techniques are replaced by capital intensive. This has decreased the number of people from the employment opportunities considerably. Then comes employment generation programs. Now the government employment generation programs are not up to the mark. You have learned a few employment generation programs in class 10. One example is NREGA. Now employment generation programs are not so effective. That has also created that is a result of faulty planning. If employment generation programs are working properly, the problem of unemployment will not be there. And insufficient infrastructure facilities. You know which are the infrastructure facilities. You have learned in the last chapter regarding infrastructure facilities such as roads, railways, bridges, telecommunication, etc., IT industry, etc. If our infrastructure facilities are developed properly, more and more people could be absorbed in these areas. Our growth of infrastructure facilities are less, that can again create the problem of unemployment. So faulty planning. So under the faulty planning, there are three concepts that you have to explain. One is lack of infrastructure facilities, and point number 2, that is inefficient employment generation programs by the government and adoption of a technique of production. Next is inadequate employment planning, low priority to employment objective in planning. Now in the planning is done for 5 years, isn't it? So 5-year plans. In the 5-year planning, the importance to employment objective. Employment was not given that much priority. So during the planning time, the employment should be given priority to eliminate the problem of unemployment. So due to low priority to the employment objective in planning, it has resulted in the problem of unemployment. Next one is low capital formation. Low capital formation has killed the potential in the industrial and agricultural sector. You know that both industrial and agricultural sector needs capital for its functioning. So, low capital formation has thus killed the growing potential of industrial sector as well as the agricultural sector. So, you know that the contribution of GDP comes from the industrial sector, agricultural sector as well as from the service sector. Only if the agricultural sector, service sector and the industrial sector are growing, more employment opportunities will be there. If these sectors have to grow, there should be capital formation. So, the lack of capital has created the problem of unemployment. So, these are the major problems of unemployment. So, the causes of unemployment can be discussed once again. First one is slow rate of economic growth. Point number 2, population explosion. Point number 3, underdeveloped agriculture. Point number 4, defective educational system. Point number 5, slow growth of industry. Point number 6, decline of cottage and small scale industries due to emergence of modern industries. Next is faulty planning, then inadequate employment planning, and the last one, low capital formation. Now, this unemployment is a serious issue in our country. Therefore, government has to find remedial measures to remove the problem of unemployment. Now, let us see which are some of the remedial measures which have been adopted and which are yet to be adopted by the government. Remedial measures can be, point number 1, accelerating the growth rate of GDP. Now, what all points we have discussed in causes of unemployment, all those points you can recollect. So, remedial measures, the first one is to increase the growth rate of economy. So, when we increase the growth rate of economy, what will happen? Industrial sector as well as agricultural sector will start growing. More and more number of labor force will be equipped in these sectors. Therefore, the problem of unemployment can be removed. Point number 2, control of population. So, when we discussed about the causes of unemployment, the point number 2 was population explosion. So, what is a remedial measure for that? Control of population. Family planning measures should be made effective by the government through proper education, especially in the rural areas or in the at most remote areas. Government should take effective measures to educate to the people regarding the importance of family planning. So, population explosion should be controlled. Otherwise, the economy will not be able to absorb the growing labor force to the employment sector. Point number 3 is development of agricultural sector through improved techniques, extension of irrigation facilities, investment, etc. You know that majority of the people in the rural areas depend on agriculture to earn their living. So, if the agricultural sector is not improved, people will remain to be unemployed. How can we improve the agricultural sector? Instead of using the primitive techniques, bring new technology to the agricultural sector. Then provide the farmers with HIV seeds, more irrigation facilities for them. Then give financial assistance in the terms of short-term and long-term loans to the farmers. So, they will be encouraged to produce more and more of agricultural produce. So, this can remove the problem of unemployment. So, a financial assistance from the part of government can remove the problem of unemployment in the agricultural sector. Along with financial assistance, we also need to bring out technologies in the agricultural sector, then subsidies to the farmers, then expanding the irrigation facilities. Next comes encouragement to small scale industries. When we discussed the problem of unemployment, I told you due to the emergence of modern industries, the importance of cottage and small scale industries were decreasing. That should not happen, because people in the remote areas, they will depend on cottage and small scale industries to earn their living. So, government should find some measures to encourage the cottage and small scale industries. So, this can remove the problem of unemployment. Next one is improvements in the infrastructure facilities. Improve the infrastructure facilities. When the infrastructure facilities of a country is developed, more and more people will be absorbed into these areas, and therefore it will be a good solution for the problem of unemployment. More and more labor force will be equipped into these areas, so that can eliminate the problem of unemployment. Next one is special employment programs. Government should initiate special employment programs in such a way that people in the remote areas should not sit idle. They should be able to earn their living somehow. Therefore, special employment programs should be encouraged by the government. Now you have learned in rural development, the government initiative programs for diversified activities, where people are engaged in different works other than the farming, that can be initiated by animal husbandry, horticulture. All these can be initiated by the government so that the problem of unemployment can be eliminated. The people can earn their means of living. Then comes improvement in the employment exchanges. It should be spread all over the country. Now you know employment exchanges play a very important role where people can register their names. It is undertaken by the government. So according to the vacancies, the government will be calling out the people who are in the waiting list, and they will be given the job opportunities, sometimes for a short period of time or sometimes for a long period of time. So therefore increase the number of employment exchanges, therefore people can register their names, and in between if they get chance they will be employed. So the problem of unemployment can be removed. Then comes creation of self-employment, that is training of skills, help for marketing of products, financial assistance. All these should be provided by the government. So government should provide education or training of skills so that skilled people can be generated. Government should help especially the farmers of the rural areas for marketing their products. Then government should also provide financial assistance to the farmers, especially in the rural areas. Therefore they can be involved in their agricultural activities. Thus their self-employment will be strengthened. This can reduce unemployment. Next one is reform of educational system. Now in educational system, more work oriented and technically skilled oriented type of education should be initiated. So education should be provided in such a way that more technically skilled people and work oriented people should be generated. So such kind of courses should be encouraged, or it should be introduced by the government so that more technically skilled people can come out. Next is manpower planning. Professional courses should be increased in our country. Now the human resources should be generated in such a way that the professional courses should be given importance. So the professional courses, if it is encouraged, more manpower planning will be possible. Therefore thus the problem of unemployment will be solved. So more and more professional courses, along with that professional colleges and institutions should be increased by the government. So more and more individuals will be getting employment opportunities, and thus the problem of unemployment can be solved. The next one is, what are the programs that can be done by the government exclusively, that is government and employment generation activities, government policies and employment generation. First one is direct employment. So this is especially related to the measures taken by the government measures exclusively by the government. First one is direct employment. What is this direct employment? Government is giving employment directly to the people. Example, those people who are working in the government offices. Now along with that, government is also running the business. government is running industries, government is running hotels, government is running transport services. For example, hotels, KTDC, Kerala Tourist Development Corporation, then KSRTC, transport. So government is running that service and lot of people are provided job in that. So that kind of employment opportunity which is provided by the government is known as direct employment. So in direct employment, two categories of people will come. Those people who are working in the government offices and those people who are working in the service, which is business which is taken by the government, which is business which is undertaken by the government, like hotel business, industrial business, and the other one is the hotel business, then industrial business and transport. Then comes the next. Government also provides indirect employment. So first one was direct employment and the other one is indirect employment. How government is providing indirect employment? Let us see. By encouraging the private enterprises to provide raw materials to government enterprises. Government can help the private enterprises by asking them to provide raw materials to government enterprises. Government is involved in the production of so many goods and services, and for the production of goods we need raw material. Government needs raw material. So government can access these raw materials from the private enterprises, from the private business parties. So it will be an encouragement for them to produce the raw materials for the government. So it helps for the employment opportunities of these private parties. Private parties may be collecting these raw materials from the small entrepreneurs. So it comes from the small entrepreneurs to the big private entrepreneurs, and finally it will be handed over to the government. So government can give indirect employment by purchasing the raw materials from the private entrepreneurs. So that is a very good method of employment generation, and it is a good solution for unemployment. So there are two types of government employment program. One is direct employment and the other one is indirect employment. Now employment generation. Next one is government also can initiate the employment generation program like NREGA. Along with this, government also, along with direct and indirect employment scheme, government should also generate employment, government should also provide employment generation schemes such as NREGA, then Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana. So many measures are there, employment generation measures are there, which you will be learning in the coming chapter. So these are the government measures. So government should take remedial measures to eliminate the problem of unemployment. The major two measures that government can take is by providing direct employment and by providing indirect employment. Along with that, government also should introduce so many employment generation schemes. So these are the remedial measures to solve the problem of unemployment. First one is accelerating the growth rate of GDP, control of population growth, development of agricultural sector, encouragement to small scale enterprises, improvements in infrastructure, special employment programs, improvement in employment exchanges, creation of self-employment, reforms of educational system, manpower planning. Government should encourage more professional courses. Along with that, there should be exclusive government policies and employment generation. That is, government can provide direct employment and indirect employment. Also, employment generation programs like NREGA, which is introduced by the government, can solve the problem of unemployment. So with this, we have come to an end of this chapter. Do the exercise given in your textbook.